Welcome to our video series where we are going to go through a grade 12 IT or Information Technology Prac exam, paper 1 from November 2024. This is our second question in the video series, so we're going to be dealing with the database and SQL question. Just a reminder that all the links to the other questions as well as to the data files are in the video description. So I really recommend that you go and try the paper out first and then come back here and check out how to do it so that you can see where you can improve and where you can make changes. So here we go about a database about marathons, and there are two tables, one that talks about locations and one that talks about the marathons. And there is an attachment at the end which gives the details of the database. So scrolling to the end of the exam paper, you will see here they've got the details of the locations table, the details of the field, the data types and what they're about. They give some sample data, and then they do the same for the marathons, and then they talk about the relationship. So the relationship ID and the location ID and the location ID are what are connecting the two tables together. So those are the details. So you can always attach this and then use that to refer to the names of the fields for when you're doing your SQL in your code. I've got a screenshot over here where we can see the details as well. So I'm going to use this as my reference point when I want to jump back and forth between the different pages. So there you can see the GUI. And if you scroll down, they tell us that we're going to use the ADO table locations and marathons. I think that's going to be particularly for question 2.2. And we start off with question 2.1. And it's going to be SQL statements. So we can probably do about 5 SQL statements. There you can see there are 5 buttons. Only SQL statements can be used for these questions. So that's 2.1.1. Display all the fields, that's important, from the TBL locations with a population of less than 200,000 people. So we're looking at the population field being less than 200,000, not including, but just less. So here we've got the file. I'm going to go to the SQL tab. I'm going to double click on that. Just again, reminder to put your examination number at the top there. That's nice. They've actually given us the field names over there as well, so we can see it in the comments. So all we have to do is write our code there for the SQL statement. It's a string, so you leave the double quotes there. So I'm simply going to say select all of the fields. That means we must select star. You could label them each individually, but it's quicker just to say select star. Then we're going to say from which table. I think it was the TBL locations table. And then our criteria is where we are looking for where the population is less than 200,000. So the population field must be less than 200,000. Make sure that you have spelt all of your table names as well as your field names correctly according to what they are in the database. So let's run it. Click on low population and there's no results. But did I have the right? Oh, I said 20,000. It must be 200,000. So I've added another one. Let's run it again and see if it works this time. There we go. I think that is correct. If we look at their options, it looks very similar to ours. I think that's correct. 2.1.2. Display only those fields for all the marathons organized by Runners United taking place during September. Okay, so there are two criteria. They want only specific fields. Let's get the first bit going. So we're going to scroll down to 2.1.2. We just have to write the code in there. So we're going to select, and those fields, those are the ones that we must write down. Marathon ID, marathon date, and distance. So those are the fields. I'm going to say from which table. Well, this is going to be from the, I'll just go check back here just to double check. Those are fields in the marathon table. So we can say from TBL marathons. I think it was marathons. I think that's the exact word. And then we're going to add a where clause. Now, just to make sure that we can see everything, I'm going to put a little space there and then put a plus and then put the rest of my text here. It's very important to put that space at the end of your last text so that it doesn't take whatever's over here and just puts it directly against it, and then it doesn't recognize the table name. So here's where I'll put my where clause. And what is my where clause? We want organized by Runners United. So we want the organizer to be Runners United, which is a text field. So we want the organizer field. Make sure that you spell it exactly like it is in the database. I think it's organizer is equal to the text Runners United. Now you want that as a text field. So you can't use single quotes because we're already using single quotes for the text here. So we're going to use double quotes for Runners United. So Runners United like that. Make sure that we spelled that correctly. Runners United, that is correct. And taking place during September. So we want the marathon date to be September. So how do I get just the month. Okay, so there is a month function. So we got another criteria. So we put and. Remember, when you're selecting fields, you put commas. When you're selecting different tables, you separate them by commas. But when you've got criteria, you must use and or, because you need to know how the criteria interact with each other. Must they both be the same? Must they both be counted, or is it one or the other? So we use an and we're going to say where the month of the marathon date field must equal to September. So September is the 9th month. So we want the month of the marathon date field to be a 9. So show me those fields from that table where the organizers, runners united, and the marathon date is a 9th of the month. Let's run it. And we get those options, which are the exact same ones that they've got over there. So I think that's correct. Let's move on to 2.1.3. The location of each marathon is required by the organizers, so we want to concatenate the city field and the first 3 letters of the province in the locations table in a new field called location. Okay, so we want it to look like this. Okay, so we're going to display the city and then we're going to add some text to it. Okay, so that's quite a different type of query we haven't done before. So let's go. So we're going to select a field. And we're going to select, first of all, we're going to select the city, which is, I think, a property already there. If I look over here, okay, so we're selecting the city, and then the province, we want to get the first 3 letters of the province. So we want the first 3 letters. So there is a left function in SQL. It's very similar if you do cat to how the Excel functions work, like there's left, there's right. So it takes in 2 parameters. It takes in the text that you want to copy from and how many letters to the left that you want to copy. So let's go. So we're going to say city, and let's just double check. They want city followed by a dash. So we're actually going to put plus a dash there. Now we're going to construct a string. I don't actually think the plus works. I think you're going to have to, if you're concatenating strings or building strings, I think you're going to use the @ symbol. That's what is often used in Excel as well. So let's do that and see what happens. And again, we can't use the single quotes. We must use the double quote. So we're going to put the double quote in that, and then we're going to add on to that. We're going to add on the first 3 letters of province from the from the left to the left. So we're going to say copy from the left. Which field are we copying from? We're copying from the province field. I think it's spelled like that. If that's with the field, it's province just like that. And we want to copy 3 characters to the to the left of the province field. So take the city, and that's going to get all that information from the table called TBL locations, if I remember correctly. So let's just try that, see if that works. I think the ampersand works when you're constructing strings. So let's marathon cities. Okay, so we've got our data and it looks like it's on track. The only problem is what the field is called. They said the new field must be called location. So that just means when we have our field that we are building, we're going to give it a special name, which we're going to use the as location. So we're going to do this, but call it location. So if we do that, there we go. Got our fields, there's location. Perfect. 2.1.4. A city must be added to the TBL locations table. The details of, so we must add this to the locations table. So this is not a select, this is an insert. So we're going to come here. So to insert, so the way insert works, you can say the word insert. Then in brackets, you'll list all the fields names. Then you're going to type in the word values, followed by a bracket saying what the values are that are going to go into those different field names. So that's the structure of an insert. Actually, it's insert into, if I remember correctly, insert into TBL locations. And then you put the field names over here like that. What are our field names? So we've got location ID, and then you can just write as it is. We're going to have city, we're going to have province, we're going to have altitude. Make sure you spell it exactly like it is in the database, population. Okay, so those are the fields. Now I'm just going to put a plus here so we can come over here, and we're going to add a new string to it. Remember, we've put a little space at the end there, so it doesn't add values straight to the bracket, so you can see values. Now what values are we actually adding? So I'm actually going to do this so you guys can see. So in location, we want the value 19. So now we need to make sure that we get the values in the correct format. So I'm going to scroll down to the description over here, and here we can see it's number, text, text, number, number. So we must make sure our text has double quotes around it, our numbers are like they are, and dates normally have hashes around them. Those are the 3 rules. So we're going to put in the number 19, which we can leave as is. Now we're going to put in the text welcome, which we put in double quotes, and we separate our fields by commas. Then we're going to put in free state. also as text with double quotes. Now these two numbers we can leave as numbers. We don't have to put text or things around them. And then 423016. So that is going to go into there, that's 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 going to go into there. If these are the only fields that are in that table and they are in the correct order, you don't actually have to mention it. But I always like to do this just so I can see, okay, is everything going to the right place? So let's test that and see if it works. Remember, we do have a restore database option, which we can click on to put the values back into, restore the database to its original state where it didn't add the city. So let's add the city. And if we scroll down, do we have a 90 bulk there? There's our value. So if I click on it again, it will probably give an error because we can't put another 19 in. Yeah, we can't do that because we've already got a 19. But if I restore the database, okay, let's now add the city. There we go. So it did work again. So there we go. Fantastic. I'm just going to restore the database so we go back to the original state. Now, let's do the last SQL question. And they've been quite easy. So I'm going to find, oh yes, the last questions are 7, mark 1. This is a Magoli. So let's try see what we have to do here. Again, when you're tackling a question that's so many marks, there's probably a lot of elements to it. Just get the parts that you can get. Make sure that you tick off little parts, test it maybe as you go along, and just build the SQL statement as you go along. We're going to display the city, the number of marathons, and the total prize money. Of all the marathons held in a city, only if the prize money is more than 50,000. Okay, so we got city. We know there's a city, but there's number of marathons and total prize money. If I look here, there's no total marathons, and there is a prize money field, but we basically count in the, like for example, Cape Town or East London. We're going to go through here and count all the East London marathons, how many there are, and total all the prize money from all the East London ones. But how do we know that this marathon is in East London? Oh, it's got to do with the location ID. Okay, so like for example, the Cape Town one's location ID. So we actually are going to refer to the city name, which is coming from this table, and then we're getting the prize money and how many marathons from this. So we're using two tables. So that's good. So we know that there's two tables. And it's also because we haven't had a question with two tables yet, and there's always going to be one like that. So let's take it step by step. So we're going to say select. So we know that there's going to be a city field. I know that, and I need to spell select correct. That's also helpful, Mr. Long. Okay, so I'm going to select city, and I'm going to select from both tables. So I'm going to select from both the marathons and the locations table. So we're going to say from TBL locations, comma, TBL marathons, because we get in from both tables. Now, the moment you have two tables, you must have a where clause which shows the link between the two tables. And if you remember, location ID from this table links to location ID of that table. Now to do that, to show that link, you need to say location ID is the same as location ID. But it doesn't know, which one are you talking about, Mr. Long? Well, the location ID from TBL locations, so TBL locations dot location ID is the same as the TBL marathons dot location. So let's put this where clause on a new line just so we can see it. So I'm going to put a plus there with a space, and we're going to let's just so we can see, because it's going to be quite a complicated query. So we select city from locations, we put a little space there where we've got the moment you've got two tables, you need to put in the link between the two. Now, I don't know about this. Okay, so the number of marathons. So we basically count in the number of marathons. So we are counting. Now, the moment we're counting, we can count star, we can count anything. So I'm going to say count star. Let's see if that works. So we're going to say get the city, comma, count star. Now, the moment you have an aggregate function with another field, you are going to group by the other field. So I'm going to now put a space here and then put another plus sign here, because we're going to have another string, and we're going to always group by the field that's not the aggregate function. So we're going to group by city. Now, if you don't know what order to put this in, I've mentioned in previous videos, smelly feet will give horrible odors. So it's first select, then from, then where, then group by. And then we're going to have in an order if we ever have that. So we've got them in the right order. So let's just try that for now. I think it might work. So let's try it. So we're getting somewhere. So we've got cities. Now I can see East London's 2 and Mbombela is 3. I know the other criteria, but let's have a look. East London's 2, Mbombela. Okay, so we're getting the right things, but we just want to make sure that that looks like that. So that's going to be our as. Okay, so we're on the right track. Do you see how we built it and we make sure that it works? So this count, we're going to say this is as num marathons. So that's the label at the top. Okay, so that's great. Now we've got this half done. Now to get the total prize money, that's going to be adding up all the prize money. So that's going to not be count, that's going to be summing all those prize monies based on the grouping. We're going to add another field. So after this marathons, we're going to say sum of prize money. I think that's what the field is called. If we look here, it is called prize money, one word. That's fine. Sum of prize money, and I'm actually going to put a little quote there again, plus let's put this on a new line just so we can see everything, so there's a little space there, that's fine, there's a little space there, that's fine, space there, that's fine, everything's happy. Okay, so this is just another aggregate function that is still grouped by the city, so count by marathon of the cities and sum the prize money of the city. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Okay, so prize money, East London is 6450. East London 6450. Perfect, that's right. I think Mbombela 68. Yeah, so we're getting the right values. Okay, so and total prize money must be the label at the top there. So that's easy. So we're just going to come here and say the prize money is going to be as total prize money. Now just be careful here. If you want spaces in your field names, you must put that in square brackets. So there we go, there's the square brackets. And now we've got too many records, okay? So we've got too many records. So we've got lots of them. We only want those where the prize money, by the way, the prize money, just look at the format. Okay, so there's not currency, so we don't have to do any formatting of that. We only want if the total prize money is more than 50,000. So now, okay, so that's another criteria. Now this is a little trickier as well. Where the total prize money, where that field has a criteria. Now, the moment you have a criteria on, for example, if we want to find where the cities start with the letter S, that will go under the where. That's fine. But because we are now doing a criteria on one of the calculated fields, we can't do it under where. We have to do it under having. Now, having comes after the group by. So we're going to add a plus here and add another step here. And we're going to say having a criteria, which is the sum of the prize money. So you can specify the sum of the prize money must be more than 50,000, not equal to, greater than 50,000. So when you've got a criteria on the fields, you can put it in the where. If you've got a criteria on a function or aggregate function, or particularly like a calculated field, you put it in the have-in field. Let's run it now. And Rika, I think it's run. Are they the same values? So we get East London, Mbombela, we got 2, 3, we got that, and everything looks spot on. I think that's exactly what we want. Do you notice how I broke it down into its little parts, tested it to see that it was working? What's also nice, if I test it to see if it's working, if something goes wrong, I know exactly where to start looking for the errors. If I try to do this all in one go and it doesn't work, I won't know where to find the potential mistakes. Okay, so don't forget, smelly feet will give horrible odors. Select from where, group by, have in, order by. Fantastic. I think we got all 7 marks. Now let's move on to 2.2, which we're going to use normal database programming, normal Delphi stuff. So they say some organizers withdrew from the marathons and their records will no longer take place. The organizer's name will be entered by the user. We've already got the name of the organizer from a dialog box, but we need to remove the records from the marathons table of all those with the same organizer. So we're going to go through the marathon and say if the organizer is this, remove them. So that's a delete. We are deleting records, multiple records, which means we're going to go through each and every record. So here we are in 2.2.1. We've got the organizer's name over there, and we're going to go through each and every record. The moment you do that, we know that we're going to go TBL marathons dot first. We're going to go while not TBL marathons dot end of file do. Okay, that should be a while, not a will. While not, and then we're going to have a begin end, and then inside here we're going to go TBL marathons dot next. That's your algorithm whenever you're going through a table, through each and every record. Now we're going to go to the first record. If TBL marathons. Now we want to access the organizer field of TB. So the organizer field, I want to get that value and compare it with what we've just entered into that variable. So TBL marathon square brackets, and in quotes here you put the name of the field organizer. If that field of the first one is equal to this one, to the one from the input, then we have found a match, which means we can now say TBL marathons dot delete. and then if it's not, it'll go next, and it'll go, okay, the next one, is that the same organizer? No, then we don't do it. If it is, then we delete, and so on. So we keep doing it like this. The little trick here, however, ladies and gentlemen, if we ever deleting multiple records, then when you delete, the delete has a built-in next. It'll delete that record and automatically move to the next record. So if we delete, for example, if there's a situation where we want to delete records, let's say it's ABC, and then it's XYZ, and then it's XYZ again. If we were deleting XYZ, we would look at, is that XYZ? No, then it'll move to the next record. Is that XYZ? Yes, it is. So it will delete it, and it would automatically move to the next record, but then we would go to the next record, which means it'll move over here and skip that one. So it's a problem when we've got consecutive values that are similar. So that's why whenever you delete, you never go to the next record, you go delete, else you move to the next record. You don't go to the next record after delete, because that's already got a built-in next. So you delete, else, next, whenever you do. Everything else, it's just you don't have the else. But for a delete, inside of a first one, not in the file, it's always delete, else, next. So that's the code for that one. So if we run it, and we come here to Delphi code and we remove the marathon. So for example, if you want to remove active events, so there's, for example, the first one. Okay, if we go through, you can see there's no more active events. We can restore the database to get all of those values back. So let's go to the next one and the final one. Let's go. 2.2.2. The runners training for long distance marathons must compete in qualifying marathons to be eligible. A qualifying marathon is any marathon that is longer than 40 kilometers or more. A city name has been entered. So we've come here. So we've got the city name. Fantastic. We've got the input. And then all qualifying marathons in that city must be displayed. When we get to a question like this, normally this is a matric level question, the last question, and that means we need to look at both tables. So I've got a feeling we're going to need to look both. So we are going to look for a city and then find all those where the distance of over 40 kilometers or more are going to be displayed. Display the name and distance of all qualifying marathons from the city name that is entered there. So we're going to basically go, I'm going to look for example, Cape Town. So that's going to be there. Okay, so we got the word Cape Town, but there's no Cape Town here. It might be in the marathon name, but it's not guaranteed. So when we come here, we're going to go through this table first, location one. We're going to look here, go through here. We found Cape Town. Once we found Cape Town, we're going to go, okay, what is Cape Town's location ID? It's a 1. Then we're going to come to this table and go through all the location IDs that are a 1. And when we find a match, we're then going to look at the distance. If it's 40 or more, we're going to then display, hey, this is a match. So that's why we first need to go through this table and find the location ID before we go through this one, because I don't know which ones are Cape Town's marathons unless I know Cape Town's location ID to compare it with that one. So we're first going to go through this and then we're going to go through that. That's why this is a grade 12 question, because we're going through both tables. So we can actually do this. We don't have to actually do it as a nested loop. You can, but we can actually break it down into a little bit. So we first go through the locations table. We've got the city. So we're going to go TBL locations. We're going to go through the TBL locations dot first, while not TBL locations end of file, have a begin and end, and then we're going to have TBL locations dot next. That's always your algorithm in going through a table. So I'm going to go here. If TBL locations, which field? We are looking for the city name, which we are getting from the city field in TBL locations. So we're going to go here and say if the city field is equal to the field that we're looking for, the name of the city that we're looking for, then we have a match. Okay, now there's two ways we could do this. Because there's only ever going to be one city, we're never going to find it. We could actually stop the loop there and then just in a brand new loop go look over here. What we could do is we could, at this point, now that we found the match, go through the marathons and find all the matches. We could do that, or we could do it at the end. Either one would work in the scenario. However, if we were going to a scenario, we were going to go through this one and then check everything, and then this one and then check everything, then you would have to do that part over here. When we found the match, we want to record what the location ID is. So let's record that. I'm going to make a number, our location ID of type integer. And so this is the one that we're looking for. This location ID is equal to the locations, but the location ID of the one that we just found, location ID. So now we've found the matching city. We've now got its location. So we can technically stop this loop here. We finished. Once we are done, then we can now go through TBL marathons dot first, while not TBL marathons dot end of file. TBL marathons dot next. Now we can go through the marathons table, and when we find, so we're going to say if TBL marathons, if the location ID matches the ID that we just found, then we have found, like for example, we found a marathon that matches my criteria. We don't just want a match of the marathon, but we also want to check the distance. So the distance is, if you remember in the question, we only want those where they have a distance of 40 kilometers or more. So we must search if it's greater than equal to 40 for the distance. So we found a match, but at the same time, so I'm going to put it in brackets, and my other criteria is that TBL marathons distance is greater than equal to 40. So not only do we need to find a match, but we must find a match where the distance is more than 40. If that is true, then we have a marathon that meets my criteria, and then we're going to display, what are we displaying? We're displaying the marathon name and the distance. So we're going to display the marathon name and the distance in the rich edit. And there's a little bit of gap, so that's a tab. So if we found this match, then we're going to say the rich edit dot lines. We're going to add TBL marathons. You can just copy and paste the fields like this. It makes it easier. What are we displaying? We're playing the marathon name. What is the marathon name? Come over here. We want to display the marathon name and the distance. So marathon name followed by a #9 because we want a tab, followed by the distance. But just take note, you need to take note of what the fields are. So this is a what type of field? It's text, which is fine for the rich edit. This is not text. This is a real value. So we're going to convert this from a float to a string so that we can display it. We found the location. Once we found the location and we stopped everything, then we go through all of the marathon records. If we find a location that matches and the distance is more, then we display it. So let's test that. We're going to go to Delphi Code. We're going to say qualifying marathons. We're looking for poll, and we get those two. Is that what they want? There, we did get the two values that we got. Perfect. Now, they do say, yeah, there's a little thing we haven't finished. If Sasolburg was entered, we must display that. So we actually, if display a suitable message, if the city name entered cannot be found. So if we can't find, so we need some sort of way to check if that name was actually found. So I'm going to have a thin ghost here, a Boolean, be found, which is a thin ghost or a Boolean, because it's a thin boo. And we are going to, when we're looking for the city, I'm going to default this be found. We're going to say, hey, we haven't found it. And the moment we find it, we record its location, and I can say, hey, be found equals true. Fantastic. If we want to, you can actually make this more efficient. You can actually say, while we haven't reached the end of the location and while be found is false, which basically means if we find what we're looking for, then it will stop looking. We can do that if you want. I don't think they're marked allocated for that, but you can do that. Then if we get over here, once we've done all the searching for the city, if be found equals false, that means it wasn't found. We didn't find any city with that name. Then what are we going to do? We're going to display in the rich edit that city was not found. So we can say the rich edit using the city that you're looking for was not found. Let's probably put the was in there. We go. So that city was not found. Else, if it was found, else. If we did find it, then we can say begin, do all of this stuff that we just did here. So I'm actually just going to put end of the if else part. And then what I can do, if you just shift this up a bit, you can see the layout a little bit better. There you can see the begins and ends and so on. Okay, so if we find it, display that. Else, if it's not, then we can go through the marathons and look for them. Let's try that. Does it still work for poll? That's the thing. Does it still work for poll? Yes, but if we type in Sasolburg, it goes, hey, there's no Sasolburg, sorry. Okay, perfect. I think that's done. That's all the question done. Now we can move on to our OOP question. If you discover that you need a refresher on what we covered in this video, then go to our YouTube channel at Mr. Long IT and CAT. Go look at the playlist tab. It'll show you everything you need to know for the content, as well as other exam papers. And give us a subscribe. And remember, don't do it the long way, do it the Mr. Long way.